Hello there, my name's Martin Scuffins from the Lee Valley Hawk and Owl Sanctuary, and in this episode of Birds of Prey in Focus we're going to be having a look at the world's fastest animal, the peregrine falcon. Is that alright with you? Okay, let's do it. So I'm here with Asterix, the peregrine falcon, the male peregrine falcon, out on our favourite flying field, which is about 10 minutes walk from our house. There's not another soul around. It's very, very quiet out here on the paddock, and I'm going to let him have a bit of a fly. Now you may notice that he's wearing a GPS tracker on his back. You can also hear a little bit of a beeping sound possibly on this video. That's the signal from his transmitter being picked up by the app, which is actually on the phone that I'm using to film this. And that GPS transmitter, very, very useful safeguard. That ensures that if he does get lost, if something goes wrong, that I know exactly where he is at all times. It also gives us a little bit of data about his speed, altitude, distance flown and this sort of thing. So very, very useful indeed. Let's see how he goes. So he's on the lure now. Not much of a flight today. I'll have a look at the stats in a minute. But his weight is quite up and he's fairly unfit. Some days he revels in it, other days he just couldn't seem to be bothered. And today was one of those days where he really couldn't give a stuff. Just wanted to sit on the glove and have a good look around. Eventually he reluctantly had a flight. All of this suggests that if he was a bit hungrier, he'd probably do a little bit more work. But anyway, as long as he's happy. So that was our exercise for the day, such as it was. Really dead still out here today. Not a breath of wind, and that's kind of hard work for a bird of prey. It really means that they have to work a bit harder. A bit of wind gives them extra lift. There was a wedge-tailed eagle over there before, and it was flying around about 2 feet above the paddock and really struggling. It got up onto a dam bank and was just sitting there for ages. So hard work today. Consequently I was just looking at the stats. He only flew about 1.8 kilometres and reached a top speed of about 75 kilometres an hour. That's not very fast for Asterix. His fastest speed so far is 106, which again is not a huge amount for a peregrine falcon. He's a display bird, he's not a hunter, and but nevertheless 106 is respectable, I believe, for a bird like him. A wild bird would go a lot faster, but he's never quite learned how to stoop as yet. We live in hopes. Once he learns how to do those amazing dives that we call a stoop, then he'll probably start to hit some of those much higher higher speeds. And the other thing you could also learn that we're hopeful about is that he might learn to go up into a thermal, and that'll give him a bit of altitude from which to dive down and reach some of those higher speeds. But he's a great little bird. He's one of my favourites. And he's enjoying his pigeon, covering me in feathers. So we're just back from flying Asterix out there in the paddock, and he did very well today, and he probably will get a bit restless in a minute because peregrines are very hyperactive birds, and Asterix is really no exception. But now that he's had something to eat, it's a good time to talk about some of his physical features. Without a shadow of a doubt, this bird here, or this species, is the top gun of the bird world. Everything about a peregrine falcon is adapted for high speed flight, and the reason is that most of their diet consists of other birds. At least if it's flying, it's on the menu as far as they're concerned. So everything from large moths right up to the size of an ibis would be in the potential prey range of a peregrine falcon. They've even been known apparently to kill wedge-tailed eagles that have wandered into their nesting territory. So this is a fairly serious predator that punches well above its weight. Let's have a look at some of the physical features that make this incredible high-speed flight and this mode of hunting possible. In the air, peregrine falcons are the personification of streamlined perfection. They have tight plumage, and their wings, which are long and swept back, resemble those of an F-16 fighter jet. One of the best known hunting strategies of a peregrine falcon is known as a stoop, where the bird folds its wings to its side and dives from a very, very high altitude on prey, striking it mid-air. It often strikes it so violently that the prey bird is killed instantly. How fast can a peregrine falcon actually travel when it's in a stoop or a dive? Well, the answer to that question, I'm afraid, changes with every person you ask. However, I often quote an American study where they had a trained bird who, along with her handler, jumped out of an aeroplane. He had a parachute, of course, the bird didn't. And on the way down, they measured the speed of the bird as it dove down and kept up with its handler. And at one point, apparently that bird hit the speed of 396 kilometres an hour. But there's a lot of confusion around this study. Hopefully with GPS technology being as good as it is in this day and age, soon we'll have some new speed records for the peregrine falcon. For now, let's ask Dr. Google and see what Dr. Google has to say about this particular question. So I'm going to type in speed and see what it says. Okay, so the very first thing to come up is 390 kilometres an hour. It's pretty close to the estimate I said. That's very, very fast. They would get a speeding ticket for doing that sort of speed on the highway, wouldn't they? Now, if we scroll down, let's see how that varies. So, blah, blah, blah. Reaching over 320 kilometres an hour. That's according to Wikipedia. What else have we got here? 240 miles per hour, 220 miles per hour, in excess of 200 kilometres an hour, 322 kilometres per hour. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of estimates for the speed of a peregrine falcon. Let's just settle at they can fly faster than anybody else. Peregrines have dark eyes and dark marks around their head which act like sunglasses, enabling them to hunt in glary conditions. They're also able to see in ultraviolet, and they can detect a lot more movement than a human eye is able to detect. They have a bony baffle in their nostril, helping them to breathe at high speed. Long toes are the hallmark of a bird-catching falcon. These enable them to grapple and capture other birds in the air. I'm here with Cleo at the Lee Valley Hawk and Owl Sanctuary. Cleo is our female peregrine falcon. She weighs about 900 grams on average, which is quite a bit bigger than Asterix, who weighs about 550 to 600 grams. Usually the female peregrine falcon is about 1/3 bigger than the male, and for this reason traditionally male peregrine falcons were often referred to by falconers as tiercels, Tiercels, from the French for 1/3. Again, we call this reverse sexual dimorphism. The females are larger than the males. She's not very happy with me being in her enclosure, so I'm going to sneak out now. Like all falcons, peregrine falcons do not build a nest as such. They take advantage of the abandoned nest of another bird, nest on a building ledge, possibly in the hollow branch of a large tree, or more often on a cliff ledge like the one in this photograph here. The average clutch size will be 3 to 4 eggs, and in general 2 to 3 chicks are successfully reared each year. We're very, very lucky to be seeing peregrine falcons in the wild in this day and age, and in many parts of the world they're now off the endangered list, thank goodness. But it wasn't always the case. In fact, this is a species of bird that we drove to the very brink of extinction, and we did it not so much through deliberate persecution, although certainly there was plenty of that occurring throughout our history, but through the invention of one type of chemical. That type of chemical was known as DDT, or more correctly, dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane. Try saying that after a few glasses of red wine. Gosh, it's windy today and very cold. So why was DDT such a big problem for peregrine falcons? Well, obviously it began to be used very, very widely in the 1950s and 1960s, and it found its way very quickly into the food chain. It was a persistent chemical that didn't break down in the environment, and through a process known as biomagnification, it worked its way through the food chain and into the bodies of peregrine falcons, where it concentrated at very, very high levels. It had a very unexpected effect on the birds. It made them lay eggs that had very thin shells. So when the birds sat on their eggs, on their cliff ledge, rock ledge nests where they like to nest, the eggs simply broke. So all over the world the number of peregrine falcons began to plummet, and before we knew what was happening, they were in dire trouble. So how does this process of biomagnification actually work? Let's illustrate it here. So we've got a farmer who's got a lovely wheat crop, and on his wheat crop he has a bit of a problem with grasshoppers. In this case we've got 10 hungry grasshoppers eating the wheat. Now along come 2 songbirds. Those songbirds eat half of those grasshoppers each. That's 5 grasshoppers they eat each. And not long after this, a peregrine falcon comes along, which eats birds, and eats both of the songbirds. This is all well and good until DDT comes along, and the farmer very quickly realises that this is a very effective solution against his grasshopper problem. So he sprays his crop with DDT, represented here by these little black dots. Each grasshopper absorbs 1 part of DDT each, a total of 10 parts of DDT. Again, along come 2 songbirds, and they eat half the grasshoppers each, unwittingly absorbing 5 parts of DDT inside the bodies of each bird. Now again, along comes a peregrine falcon and eats these delicious looking songbirds, and that peregrine falcon will absorb 10 parts in total of DDT. So this process known as biomagnification, and it's the process whereby a pesticide which is applied onto a crop will concentrate through the food chain, so that in the bodies of a top order predatory bird like a peregrine we find a concentration which is vastly higher than those at which it was originally applied. So the beautiful peregrine falcon. They have dark eyes that can look into the sun unblinking. They have long bird-catching toes. They can dive at speeds of up to 396 kilometres an hour. Did you hear that, asterisk? 396. No pressure, just saying. They're perfectly adapted to the environment in which they live and the prey that they hunt. That environment in which they live, they share with us. We have to remember that nature is not a place to visit. It's not a place where birds live. It's where we all live. So let's look after it. Thanks so much for watching our video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I better get him back before he starts to get restless. You're already restless, aren't you? Okay, let's go. See you later.